How is it going, Bears fans? Welcome back to another episode of Beared Down Uncut, the show where we talk everything Bears every day of the week. Today, in episode number 165 of Uncut, we're going to be discussing Khalil Herbert's progress so far this season. How has the sixth round pick played so far in his rookie year, filling in for David Montgomery and Damian Williams? And will his workload continue to increase as guys like David Montgomery and Tariq Cohen might be set to come back soon? We're going to be breaking it all down for you guys today, talking about the sixth round rookie phenom who has been great so far this season. Before I introduce myself and my co-host, I would like to say it's a Wednesday. It's normally the day where we would be uploading our three key matchups segment. Once again, I said it a couple of days ago or yesterday in the upload. We're trying to differentiate our content a little bit, bring you guys what you want to see, talk about what you want us to talk about. So you want to hear Khalil Herbert, we're bringing it to you guys, and we're going to bring you guys Bears content every day of the week. Still will be covering the Bears Week 9 matchup with the Pittsburgh Steelers. So if you haven't already, do us a favor wherever you are listening, YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, do us a favor, drop a like, subscribe, follow, and we're going to bring you guys the most comprehensive Bears coverage on the web. I'm your host, Chris Maltby, today to talk about a rookie running back who has really shown Chicago what he's about so far this season. I am joined with my co-host, Parth Shaw. Parth, what's going on, my man? It's getting a little cold here down in Indiana.
Yeah, it got cold really fast. But just watching some football and baseball. Yesterday, the Braves won the World Series, and then obviously this Thursday we get to see more Mike White action. So that should be fun. But
Yeah,
haven't recorded in a couple days, so it definitely feels weird being back, and definitely switching it up for you guys. Like Chris said, no more three key matchups and stuff like that. I think it's gonna be more fun creating more current content, things that are more prevalent, something that's just a hot topic that I feel like that you guys would like to hear us discuss.
Yeah, Uncut was really something that brought this channel up, so I'm excited to kind of return to our roots a little bit and record more episodes like these where we just talk for 20, 30 minutes about whatever topic the watchers and viewers and listeners want to hear. And I think it's interesting you bring up Mike White, Thursday Night Football tomorrow. Colts Jets. I will be there once again. My second straight
So,
Indianapolis Colts game that I'll be attending. I've got Michael Carter in my fantasy lineup, so a lot to look forward to there. But a lot of Bears stuff to talk about as well. A huge Week 9 game,
yeah.
not only because the Bears just need to bounce back and win. They're on a 3-game losing streak, but also because it's in prime time. A lot of people are expecting big things out of Justin Fields and other players on this team, and Khalil Herbert is definitely one of those. So let's talk a little bit about Khalil Herbert today and what we thought of him and where he's going to go. Let's take a look and start here talking about what we've thought of Khalil Herbert's play so far. Before we get into it, let's take a look at his stats so far this season. It's been quite the rookie year for the rookie sixth-round pick, obviously, out of Virginia Tech, I believe. He's rushed the ball 81 times, carried for 351 yards. That's 4.3 yards per carry. He also has scored a single touchdown and a long run so far this year of, I believe, 44 yards. He's averaging 43.9 rushing yards per game. Also has been a decent impact in the receiving game for Chicago as well. He's caught 9 balls for 44 yards. That's just about 5 yards per catch. In total yards from scrimmage, he's up to about 400 here in just a couple of weeks since he started playing, when he was activated to being primarily a running back in, I believe, Week 5 against the Oakland Raiders. Or Las Vegas Raiders, excuse me. So, Parth, we've seen a pretty good handle of Khalil Herbert's play so far. We've seen some impressive vision and patience from him. What have you thought about his play so far these last, say, month?
I've been impressed, definitely. I didn't expect, Montgomery to be out this year for that long, and when that happened, I was a little bit scared, like most Bears fans. A little bit worried of what's going to happen with the run game. Obviously, Damian Williams did well his first game when he was there, and then Herbert also did well that game. I'm pretty sure he led the team in rushing yards that game, actually, with 75 yards on 18 carries. And ever since that game, I felt like Herbert should have taken over the RB2 spot, and he basically has. He's only getting better, and he's only a rookie. So definitely a lot of potential there. His vision is something that is what excites me the most. The way he's been able to cut back, find holes, especially in an offensive line that has definitely struggled throughout the year, has had its ups and downs. That is something that I'd want to say. But he's definitely found a pretty solid role on this Bears offense and has excelled so far this past month. And I wouldn't be shocked if he got more opportunities despite when Montgomery gets back.
Yeah, and we'll jump into that a little bit later, but I gotta agree with you, man. When Montgomery went down, I think we were all a little worried because looking at the start of the Bears season, the run game is really what they relied on. And we had Damian Williams, someone who was a solid veteran, and got to give kudos to Williams too because he's been good in the opportunities that he's gotten. But Herbert, man, he has really popped off, and this Chicago Bears offense really revolves around two rookies with Justin Fields and Khalil Herbert, and I really think the both of them have bright, bright futures in Chicago. You mentioned his vision, and I like his patience a lot. It really reminds me watching him play of a younger Le'Veon Bell, someone who doesn't essentially have the speed or the quick cuttiness that someone like a David Montgomery has, but he's just patient. He waits for holes. He's smart, and he does what he needs to do each and every down. Maybe not essentially the receiving back that Le'Veon was back in the day, but Khalil Herbert's really patient, and for a six-round rookie, I mean, Ryan Pace found an absolute steal here. So I've really liked how he's played so far. In every game, he's continued to get more and more carries. Obviously, he had a lot in that game against the Buccaneers. That was absolutely terrible, but 23 carries for 72 yards last week, just about 3.2 yards per carry. He also had 2 targets in the receiving game. I think you got to continue to give Khalil Herbert the ball. I think one of the only spots we've seen Chicago be consistent offensively this year is in the run game. So you got to continue to give him the rock. I've really liked how he's played so far. I'm excited to see him go against who I believe is the only rookie running back who's been better than him so far this season in Najee Harris this upcoming week. So it should be exciting to see those two guys face off because they're really the marquee piece of both their offenses. If you look at what the Steelers are doing, a lot of their offense, including in the receiving game, goes through Najee. In Chicago, they've been still favoring the run through 9 weeks or through 8 weeks, excuse me. And Khalil Herbert has been a big piece for that. Let's take a look and talk a little bit about what happens when David Montgomery returns. Parth, I'm not sure we're going to see Tariq Cohen this season. It seems like that's a little unlikely, but his status next year, obviously, you would hope he'd be playing by the 2022 season, considering he tore that ACL in, I believe, week 3 of the 2020 season. But Montgomery is set to come back, it seems like, after Chicago's bye here in week 11. So taking a look at what the Bears have on the running back depth chart, still Damian Williams is there, and David Montgomery is going to be coming back. He's obviously the lead number 1 guy, as good as Herbert has been playing the last couple of weeks. But what do you think Herbert's workload should look like when Montgomery does return? Because he also might be a little bit limited just to get back to 100%.
Yeah, definitely. The last 4 games, Herbert's basically got in 20 rushes a game, and he's put up some pretty good numbers. And I feel like he deserves to keep getting carries. I mean, last week was probably his worst game as a starter, and it was because the 49ers made some adjustments like a good team would, and they were able to catch the Bears off guard. But, Justin Fields was able to keep the run game going still last week. That's something that is going to be even beneficial for Herbert and Montgomery. But, I think Herbert should still get 10 carries a game when Montgomery returns, if not more, just because Montgomery's still going to be, a little bit hurt coming back from that injury. And also, you just got to be aware of what Herbert can do, because if he keeps blossoming, the Bears could have fielded calls for Montgomery. Who knows? But, you have to use these guys like Hunt and Chubb, like they do in Cleveland. I think they both have very similar physical type of bodies and how they run like Hunt and Chubb. I think Herbert can be used in almost every down packages, and he's getting better as a receiving back. Like you said, Chris, he definitely had his issues here and there, but I think against the Tampa Bay game, he had 5 catches. So, there's a lot of upsides to Herbert, and something the Bears should definitely watch out for as the next year rolls around. And if they can get something out of Montgomery, then you gotta do what you gotta do.
Yeah, the minimum amount of carries that Herbert's gotten throughout these last 4 weeks when the Bears won 20-9 over the Las Vegas Raiders has been 18. So these last 4 weeks, he's been averaging about 19 and a half carries per game and averaging exactly 86 rushing yards per game. He was the first running back this season to put up 100 rushing yards on a very good Tampa Bay Buccaneers defense. Now, you might accredit that to obviously the rest of the Bears offense wasn't doing anything, so they had to be reliant on the run. But that wasn't even the most carries that Herbert's gotten this season. In fact, it was tied for the least when we played Tampa Bay, and he only had 18 carries. He had 19 against Green Bay and 23 against San Francisco last week. So I agree with you, Parth. Obviously, none of these guys, David Montgomery or Khalil Herbert or Damian Williams, none of them are the downhill runners like someone like a Nick Chubb or a Derrick Henry, but they're able to get it done in a variety of different ways. And I think continuing to diversify using all three of them is a good idea for Chicago moving forward. I definitely think Herbert should be the second option. Damian Williams, a mix of Damian Williams and David Montgomery really intrigue me in terms of being receiving backs, especially Williams, someone who's excelled in that part of the game ever since he was back with Kansas City. But overall, I agree with you. I think Herbert should keep getting 10 plus carries a game and give Montgomery 20 plus 2 when he's back.
Yeah, I mean,
I
that's
think the
what I'm
Bears,
saying. Like,
yeah,
the
yeah, I think
Browns
the Bears definitely
run
need to
the ball
continue to
40
rely
times
on
a
the run.
game.
Yeah, yeah.
So, I mean, the Bears can easily run the ball 30, 35 times a game. And I know it's something hard to do, but that's how you keep the ball in your hands and regain more possessions, slow down the clock, and win more games. That's something the Bears can get really good at just by knowing how good this Bears defense is in some occasions. You know, when this Bears defense plays a limited opportunity of drives, is in those short field positions, I think this Bears defense succeeds, and it relates to how this offense can hold on to this ball. And by running the ball and just upping that time of possession will help out this defense, and also just the way the Bears can, scheme up their offense going forward.
I mean, obviously, the Bears only put up 22 points last week, but I was actually taking a look back at the game. I wasn't able to watch the whole thing because I was obviously at the Colts Titans game. But watching film after the game, I was actually pretty pleased. I think the Bears rushing attack fizzled out towards the end of the third quarter and into the fourth quarter, but for a majority of the game, they owned the time of possession. They were able to get the ball in San Francisco territory, and obviously, you want the result of those possessions to be 7, but they were at least able to put up some points. I was pretty happy with what Chicago was able to do, and it was a credit to their rushing attack. So I think if it ain't broke, you don't fix it. You got to continue to give Montgomery and Herbert carries and just run this ball down opponents' throats, because obviously, if there's no improvement in the offensive line or Justin Fields personally, even though he has been playing better, you're going to want to rely on the run, and it helps Justin Fields too. It'll keep opposing defenses on their toes when he's throwing the ball because they're going to be expecting the run a lot. So I think relying on the run moving forward is definitely going to be important. Parth, before we close this out, let's talk a little bit about more the future as we look forward down the road. Obviously, you and I can agree. We want David Montgomery to be in Chicago for quite some time.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, the NFL is a business, and running back might be one of the most expendable positions in the league where you can bring in a ton of different players and have success because you have a good offensive line or a good rushing scheme. And we've seen the Bears have a pretty good one so far. We see other teams doing this too. The Washington football team with J.D. McKissick and Antonio Gibson, the Dallas Cowboys with Ezekiel Elliott and Tony Pollard. We saw James Conner have success a couple of years ago in Pittsburgh after Le'Veon Bell obviously left and had his whole standoff thing, and people were worried about the success of the Steelers' run game, and it may have turned out to be even better. So my point is, the running back position is expendable, and in a couple of years, the Bears are probably going to have to be suiting up in probably a year or two to pay David Montgomery quite some significant money, and that might not be able to happen. I would hope it would happen, but if it doesn't, Parth, do you think Khalil Herbert, and do you trust Khalil Herbert to be someone that could be the Bears' starting running back down the road, to be the primary back in Chicago?
Yeah, why not? The last month definitely gives me confidence in him, and seeing that the Bears were still able to run the ball effectively for a whole month without David Montgomery, Damian Williams, I think Herbert definitely is someone that the Bears can rely on to be the starting running back down the road. That's why I was mentioning that the Bears could field some calls, or might have fielded some calls this past week if Derrick Henry went down. The Titans could have, asked about Montgomery, or that Ryan Pace could have done something. But, I would have been all for it. I know if we could get a first or second for Montgomery, I think this team would do it in a heartbeat. The Bears do need weapons on the offensive side of the ball, but running back is the most replaceable position on the whole entire team. And just by knowing that, and knowing that the Bears are going to need a lot of wide receivers going into next year, I think the Bears can gather as many as picks going into next offseason. Also going to need some offensive linemen to help Fields out. This whole offense needs help besides the quarterback and running back position, in my opinion. The running back position, like I said, is easily replaceable. Wide receivers are hard to find, and good. I mean, I wouldn't say they're hard to find, but like with the way the Bears situation's been going, it has been pretty hard to find for some time lately. But yeah, I would love to see Darnell Mooney's role expand, and then hopefully the Bears can use a pick next year to bring in another wide receiver. But yeah, I would not be surprised if the Bears moved on from Montgomery sometime down the road.
Yeah, Montgomery was drafted in 2019 and I believe signed to a 3 or 4 year deal. So this isn't a question Chicago would need to answer until 2022, but I'm pretty sure they won't have to answer it until 2023. But, it's an interesting question nonetheless. I do think I'd be comfortable with Khalil Herbert at running back, but seeing how David Montgomery has only improved throughout time, gotten quicker, gotten shiftier, I'd like to keep him around and maybe we continue to rock and roll with this two-headed monster. I don't think Damian Williams is going to be in Chicago much longer after this season because, as we've mentioned throughout this entire segment, the running back position is very expendable, and the Bears have one of the best running back rooms in the entire league. So I think ideally I'd like to see Herbert and Montgomery both stick around. But if it came down to it, Herbert's proved that he can do it full time. So I'd love to see it happen. But him and Montgomery, a lot of people have given the Kareem Hunt and Nick Chubb comparisons. I think maybe we're talking about a couple years down the road, the Bears could have a rushing attack similar to that. And that's definitely good with a young quarterback in town like Justin Fields. Guys, thank you so much for listening to episode number 165 of Uncut. Do us a favor, if you're listening in on YouTube, go down in the comments. Let us know what you think of Khalil Herbert and how he has performed so far this season. And once again, we're posting the most comprehensive Bears coverage on the web the entire regular season. More Bears Steelers coverage coming later this week. Whether you are listening on YouTube, Spotify, or Apple Podcasts, do us a favor, drop a like, subscribe, follow, and we're going to be bringing you guys coverage every day of the week. If you want more content from us, head to our website, beareddown.com. You can see more of the stuff we do over on there, some columns, articles, and blogs, and get attached with all of our social media and more of what we do. So head to our website. The link is in the top of the description to see more content from us. If you would like to find the podcast on social media, you can find us on Instagram and Twitter at Beared Down. It's another great way to see some sneak peeks of guests we're going to have on the show, which are going to be returning soon. As we reevaluate the scope of what we want to do, we're going to have a lot of credentialed guests and former Bears players back on the show. So look forward to that. But we announce all that stuff on our social media. So check that out. It's also another way to interact with us and let us know what you want to hear on the show. Because we want to put out the content that you guys want to see. And finally, you can find the links to our social media pages down in the description for myself as well as Parth, our personal pages. Another great way to interact with us. We're really active on Twitter, and you can see our thoughts on all things Bears, the NFL, and the entirety of Chicago sports as teams like the Bulls start to heat up. The Blackhawks finally won a game after 10 games. So a lot going on in Chicago right now. Our social media is definitely worth checking out. Parshaw, big week in the NFL, a lot going on. But any last words before we sign off here and head into Thursday night football tomorrow night?
Yeah, big week for the NFL. The Bears are not going to be playing this Sunday. It's a Monday night game, so a little excited for that. I feel like Monday night games are always a little bit more fun. Excited for Thursday night this weekend. I guess you're going to the game, so that should be a little bit fun. Hoping for a big game for Jonathan Taylor, a proud Jonathan Taylor fantasy owner right here. He's been having a great year. Definitely a little tired, a little rusty.
Go get some sleep, man. We deserve it. I think I would say, man, there's a lot going on. I think I would expect the Colts to win tomorrow night, but with how Mike White played, man, he was the first quarterback to have over 400 yards in his debut since Cam Newton in 2011. So it
Ridiculous.
should be a good game, but a lot going on in the NFL otherwise. Adrian Peterson back in the league.
Yeah.
Don't even get me started on that whole Henry Ruggs situation. My goodness gracious, we're not going to comment on that further than that. But my God. And yeah, another big week coming up in week 9, a good slate of games. And
Yeah.
as Bears fans, I guess we'll just continue to root for the progression of Justin Fields. It's obvious that this team might not be there yet, and we'll be entering hopefully a soft rebuild soon. But if we can continue to see Fields play some good football, especially on Monday Night Football in prime time, a spot where the Bears have struggled and been embarrassed in the past, I think we can all go away regardless of the result
Exactly. Yeah.
and say we're happy. So, guys, it's been a pleasure to be your host. Once again, my name is Chris Maltby. And Bears fans, as always, do us a favor and stay safe and bear down. We'll see you in the next one.